Welcome to Skill-Based Art, a learning resource for art students and artist teachers. My name is Paul Borg. Today I'll be demonstrating how to use soft pastel, and I'll be working from a still life from life. Now I enjoy using soft pastel. For me, it's when I'm not painting, it's actually a pastel is like a very much like paint. You can push it round, you can rub it away, you can scrape back and do all sorts of things with it. But it allows me to prepare and do studies before I actually do paintings. It's quite a nice medium to work with. And to me, it's a dry form of paint, in a sense. Okay, in regards of the materials, I'll be using the soft pastels. And but I also use a charcoal. I start off drawing the composition out with charcoal and just get the basic composition in. And I would sometimes get the drawing going, and I might wipe it back. So I always have a tissue handy. So if there's something I don't like, I wipe it back and I allow it to evolve. I don't know exactly what I want, so I just let the whole thing evolve. Now with the actual pastels, because they're quite soft and they're quite like paint, I tend to prefer holding them in my hand. I don't like them laying on a table or a box. They're in my hand. That way it's much more easier to grab them. And because I tend to work fast with pastel, I don't work very slow. I work really quickly, and this way they're in my hand. So my hands will get messy, and sometimes I end up having a bit of a cramp, but that doesn't matter. You have to suffer for your art sometimes, but I prefer it this way. Now with the paper, I'll be using a cartridge paper which is about 300 GSM, and I actually prepared the paper with a layer of gouache. Now there's a few different coats of colours on this, and I might use the raw umber, I might use yellow ochre and a bit of yellow. Now because I'm not going to be adding any water, I'm allowing to use this gouache. If I decide to use a pastel, I'm going to add water to it, I would put a wash with acrylic paint instead, very thinly, because at least when I put water to it, the acrylic will not move. Whereas in this case, if I put a brush to this, that colour is going to move, and I'm going to lose the undercolour. So for today, I'm not going to be using water at all. I'm just going to be using the dry pastel and draw away. And as I said, I will still use this fine charcoal and draw out my composition first. All right, having said all that, let's begin. Okay, here to start, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to first use a very soft line on my paper just to put a boundary so I know I have enough space. So later on, if I want to actually frame this drawing, I've got enough area to frame. So I just put it lightly where I'm going to have enough space. So I'll crop that in, and I might come up to here and even down the bottom. So that way, if I want to mount this drawing later or frame it, I've got plenty of space to do that with. Now, to start off, I'm going to use my charcoal, and as I said before, and draw it out. And I'm not going to be fussy about exact proportions. I don't do that. I tend to just roughly draw things in. So I know, for example, the skull sitting on the brick is going to be in this area here. Part of it will be cut off. So I'm going to actually first draw in my brick. I won't do it too dark, so it'd be probably hard for you to see, but I won't do it too dark, otherwise the charcoal will mix too much with the pastel, so I'm going to keep it light. And then put my skull. And as I said, I chop and change, so I might decide, okay, oh, I'm not going to go further. I allow that to happen. I don't have always a plan. I tend to let it evolve. What happens along the way. Now here I've decided I'm going to go a little bit further. So I can bring this line here, and because it's soft, it doesn't stand out. I can bring this a little bit further, because I'm going to take this scale just a little bit further out here. The teeth area is there, roughly. Brick is there. Then from that point, there's that tree stump there. I've got a little bit of stump, draw that in. That goes out of the composition, and the other parts here. And then I'll look at things again, now looking at, for example, the jar that's here. So I'm going to draw the jar just there, lightly. Look at where the level is. The top of it is here. and put that there. Now, I've got the ball of string that's going to be here. And I'm conscious about the shapes. When I'm doing that, I can see round shapes, like the round of the eye of the skull, the horn there, the round of the log here, or the stump, the round, the oval shape here and there. Then I come over to the other skull, which is actually a pig skull, and it's a very triangle shape. So I'm just going to place that in there like that. So as you can see, it's not very clear, it's just rough. At this stage, it's very rough, and I'll allow that in case I need to make changes. Now notice when I'm doing that there, this now needs to drop. So I need to bring the ball here, much lower, which allows me to bring in, because the proportion I tend to go by, just keep looking. If I need to change it as I go along. Now, there's a shoe at the back, or a boot, so I'll put that in roughly here. The shape going like this, across, and we can see the boot ending there. So that's my first, so there, it looks very abstract, but it's very much what I want there. Now the next thing I do with the pastels is I go for my darkest and my light. Now what I'm using here is just primary colours. I'm going to use my yellow, I'm going to use a dark red and a light red. I don't know exactly what they are, it doesn't matter to me. It's to me, I know one's darker and one's lighter. With the blue, I'm going to use a lighter blue, which is a cobalt blue, and a darker blue, which is an indigo. I'm going to use my white, and I'm going to use, I might use my black. I really do use a black when I actually draw. I tend to leave it out. If I can make my darker tones from my others, I'd rather that than using the black, because the black sometimes tends to kill the drawing. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use my white to block in roughly the light areas, which is the skull and a bit of the glass and the string. So I'll block those in. Again, not detail, I'm just blocking in. And I know some people like to get everything to proportion exactly, as in photorealism. I'm not interested in that. To me, I let it evolve, because sometimes if the skull looks a bit longer or fatter or wider, that adds to the character. To me, that adds to the character, because at the end we're all different, and I've noticed over the years as an artist is that if you're a thinner person, you tend to make things thinner. And if you think that you're a wider person, same thing happens there. It becomes wider. So as I keep telling my students, don't try to make it exactly, like some people use grids and so on. That's fine, that's up to you. But I don't. I allow it to come out whatever it is. As long as it reads as a skull, that's fine. As long as it makes sense, it makes sense. If it looks silly, then yes, you have to change it. But if it makes sense, leave it. Allow it. And one of the first things I do when I'm doing this is I'm being aware is where is my light? Where's my light coming from? Here we've got a lot of light today, so I'm going to be aware of light. These white dots, for example, they're not white dots on the glass. They're reflections of all the lights that we have here. So I'm just putting in, at this stage, just roughly the light areas. Then I'm this ball of the string, lock that in. And I can see a line of it going across to there. And then I'll do this skull, bring that in. So this stage, this is the light area. I'm just blocking in roughly the light area. Now, and of course there's a string, the line of string that's coming across there. And goes at the picture plane. So as you can see here, it's just lightly where the light area is in. Now I'm going to use the blue, not the dark blue, I'm going to use the middle tone blue to start putting in the darker areas. Okay, now even for example, the shoe is brown, I'm going to use a blue. Eventually I'll make that brown as I build up the other colours. And even the stumps and the dark areas here, I'm going to use the blue first to block out. It's always best to go lighter tones than the heavy dark tones, otherwise you have to try and get rid of those if it's too dark. So I'm just blocking out. I can see the tree stump through the glass, but slightly distorted. So I'm being aware of that. The glass is distorting it, but I know it's there. Even for the brick, I'm just going to put a touch of the blue. Not too much, just a touch. And in the shadows of inside the socket of the eyes and in the skull, I'm going to put the blue. Anywhere it's shadow, I'm going to put that blue. Okay. Now, because the actual, when you look at the still life, I've got an orange background and a blue background, I can bring this blue right through, and then I can start working with this with a light yellow first. So let's put in the blue and do that, block that in. Don't worry about if I go over the string and everything else, because I can come back to that later. The only thing annoying sometimes with the pastels is that it gets to the paper point. So I've got to quickly rip the paper while I'm in momentum and get that paper off. No, we'll get more off. I'm tending to use not the point, but sometimes the side of the pastel. Now, the reason why I'm using this undercolour of this gouache wash, because I want to try and retain some of that. I don't want to cover it totally. I want it to be part of the actual drawing. So I would leave some of that come through. As I build it up, some of it will come through. And what it does, it actually helps colours fuse together or come together by the actual colour moving, the actual colour, undercolour coming through. Now this stage, if I wanted to, I can actually smudge it or just keep building up in layers. So I've got a tissue here and I'll use that. I like sometimes using those little makeup little round things that my daughter has. They're great for pastels. But let's just do that. I'm just going to quickly, roughly, just block it. But not too much, because I like some of those lines. I don't want to lose too much of it. Just doing that. Now, because the background is actually lighter, I'm going to use my lightest, not the white of course, but the yellow. So I'm going to block that out. Now, as it's, to me, the pastel, the colour I've got here is quite yellow, I'm going to use that yellow around the rest of the still life. And I always, because my other passion is music, I see colour as tones, as sound, and as notes. So what I'll do is that if this is, like, for argument's sake, this is my yellow is a C, I'm going to put as a piece of score of music, I'm not just going to have it in one part of music and that's it. I'm going to have that C somewhere else. So I'm going to actually use that yellow in other areas and move it across. That way it unites it, brings it together. So I'm going to go around and start putting up where, for example, the brick is. Because eventually it's going to be a red brick, but I'm going to put the yellow first. I'm going to put some in the tree stump. Some of the shadows underneath. Into the glass, because it's reflecting from that it's going to reflect onto here, so I can have a little bit there, into here, and move from there. To me, it's not about the photorealism in this case, it's about the movement of colour. At the end, I want to look like what I've got there, but I want it also to be about colour and moving across. Okay, now once I've done that, I'm going to go into using the red colour. I'm going to use a lighter red, and I'm going to start blocking in things like the brick. Tree stump. And I'm going to start putting it also into the blue of the boot, because eventually it's going to be a brown boot once I build it up and build it up. So as you can see, I'm not staying in one area, I'm moving across and moving across. That allows me to see it all as one thing. Now, at this stage, I'm going to use my darkest blue to start defining it, squinting my eyes and looking at the shapes and seeing where it's dark and light and make them stand out. So I would use those to start defining. So I'm going to use, for example, the bottom of the skull underneath, put in my darker blue. Under the boot, between the teeth, and I'm not going to be worried about how many teeth there are. I'm not a dentist, I'm not interested in that. I'm just interested in just putting in my dark and light. Under the vase or the jar, and you can see the ellipse of that, so I can put that through. So I'm starting to give it a bit of what we call definition. I'm defining some of these shapes. Inside the boot, a bit darker, so I can put that there. Now because I'm working very quickly and my arm's up, this is when my arm starts to cramp. So I go stop, twist my arm around a bit, otherwise you'll get really sore. And do that, and then back again, and keep going. And just keep that momentum going. So I'm back and forth, back and forth. At the moment it's still abstract in a sense, but I'm starting to get colour down. At the moment it's more about colour, layers, colour and texture, and eventually I'll start going into definition. Squint my eyes, I know it's darker in here because there's a shadow under there. Now in this case, because I'm using that dark blue paper as the base, I might touch a bit of the black because it needs to be a little bit darker. So let's work with that. Let's see how we go. The other option is using the dark red on top of that and see what happens. If I do that, sometimes it comes out dark and it'd probably be enough. But let's see what happens. Again, as I said, there's no plan. So I'm going to do that first, and then if it's not dark enough, then I'll use the black. So in this case, I'm going to go back, the blue back into here, the dark blue, and I'm just going to put a little bit of the black. It's so sharp, the black, it tends to kill it. So I'm not going to put too much. I'm just going to put a suggestion. And then I'll go over that black with the other colours. As I was saying before, the reason why I love this soft pastel, it's like paint. It is exactly like paint, it's just a dry form of paint, and because you can push it round, you can do all sorts of things into it, and you can really play around with it. Now at this stage I'm going to stop because my arm is cramping, so I'll have to, otherwise it'll cramp for too long. So I'll just stop for a moment and then have a look at it. Have a look at it and see where I'm at. This needs to be darker here, a bit darker. And then just have a good look for the while. Squint my eyes, have a look and see where am I at. Okay, I've got the basic shapes are here. Everything's there. Composition is important still. So this is my round shape here, the round. So I'm still keeping those in place and just keep looking and working out. Okay, and I know of course this is going to be orange. So I'm going to then work with the red on top and then work from there and take it from there. Okay, my arm, and then go back in. So now I'm going to use the light red and I'm going to go over Oops, take the paper off. Make it nice and flat. And I'm just going to go in. At this stage, I'm going to be more cautious now about the drawing of the objects, looking at negative space. To get that skull right, I'm going to look at the negative space outside that skull. Okay, so this needs to come in. And in here, and then I can block that out. I'm going to get my tissue and go over the areas because we know it still needs to be orange. So again, I'm going to go over the top with the yellow. But before I do that, I'm going to go over it with the white to make it, to bring it a bit more pale. Now, of course, I can very much, if I wanted to, I'd just grab a yellow, orange pastel and put that in, which is fine, but I like the layers. When I do this, I like the actual layers of different colours to make my orange, rather than actually just using a straight orange pastel. And if it looks different to that orange, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's my picture, so if I want to make a different tone, it's about what I want at the end, rather than trying to make it exactly what's there. It's a feast of colour, so you've got to really get the viewer interested in the feast of colour that you're putting down by putting layers and layers. So I'm just going to block that in with the white. Then go back in there with the yellow. And I find when I do this, the yellow, the orange is a bit more glowing. Now I know inside the jar that there is an orange through the jar, but I don't really have to put that there because of the orange tone or the paper tone. It looks like it's already there. So I can leave that. That'll become part of the actual drawing. I don't have to go in there and work it. I can leave it. Okay. Now again, stare for a while. Have a look and work. What have I got? Now start going back to light areas. So I'm going to come back to the skulls now and start bringing in more light and more dark. And more definition at the same time. For example, as I keep telling my students when they say, well, it's a white skull. Is it? What is white? When you look at white, it's not really white. In this case, you've got the orange background, you've got the blue here, and it's all reflecting into the white. So if I look at this, I can actually see that there is blue reflecting underneath that white part of the skull. And I can see the blue reflecting into here. Now, some people struggle to see it. You sort of have to teach yourself. You've got to teach yourself that it's there. It's definitely there. You've just got to train your eye to be aware. The dark area under here, and I'm not going to use the black here, I'm going to use a dark blue that I've got, and I'm using a bit of the yellow, and I'm going to use a bit of the red, the dark red. Get darker inside there. At this stage, I'm starting to fixate and sit in an area and stay in an area and work. That then allows me to come back to all the other areas. So I start to focus, start defining. But sometimes when I do drawing like this, like I said, sometimes I'll go over the whole thing with a tissue if I'm not happy with it, and it leaves me with a layer, and I'll do that. And other times what I've done in the past is that when it's too heavy, I actually get a vacuum cleaner and go over it, and it takes off some of the pastel, and it gives me a ghost image, and it allows me to go back in there and rework. Okay, I'm going to leave this area now and go to the other skull, then I'll come to this area here. Okay, work with that. Now have a look at the shape. So if I look at the shape of that shadow, there's a bit of a dark area here of the eye. I'm going to use a bit of the blue and then a bit of the yellow. And the touch of the red, the lighter red. Now there's the little dots on the actual skull. I'll put those in there. And then work around, keep working around. Now I'll come back with the white and start building it up as I did with the other skull. And always moving with the form. This is going straight down, so I'm using the pastel with the form going this way. And as it goes down, I go down there like that. And again, I'm leaving the undercolour of this tone. I need there to be part of it. Okay, again, stop, have a look, work out, what have I got? I've got these happening. Now I'm going to go to, from those points, I'm sticking with the white, so I'm going to go with the spool of string and work with that. Now I've got, it's a spool of string, so I can see all these lines. So I can start working with these lines. And again, the type that I am, I'm not going to sit there and work out, okay, that line is here, that, no, I'm not interested in that. I'm just interested in, I can see lines and put those lines in there, and I can use the white, and at the same time you can use my dark tone. I'm use the blue if I wanted to, and just put in some in between lines. Look at the pattern of it, because there is a pattern of which way the strings are being bound, and I'm working with that. Now having a look at that, when I squint my eyes, that's light there, that's dark here. So I need to darken that side. So I'm going to use my yellow and my red and darken this side, because it is still a sphere. Then come back and redefine. Now, I'll let it go. I'm going to come back to here now to the actual vase, and I can see the light areas and start putting in some of the light areas. Now, it's transparent and fragile. There's nothing worse, as I tell my students, that it's a fragile object, so I'm not going to put a thick white line. I don't see any thick white lines. I see very fine lines. So it's a fragile object, which means your lines should also be fragile when you put those down. So I'm just going to do that. From where I'm standing, this is what I can see, or sitting here, and I can see these definite light areas here. This is a bit more fainter. There's a couple of lines here, which I know they're the fluorescent lights reflecting onto here. The edge of the glass is reflecting from the skull. You must know, always know, where is your light coming from, where are your colours coming from, what's creating the certain colours. Here. And here I can see the jar is reflecting, but it's actually more orange because it's reflecting that paper. So I'm just going to put my yellow. And then put my red. And then go back in there with the white to make it a bit more lighter. But we know it's going to be darker behind here, so that will come in later. Here is reflecting onto there. I can actually see the skull reflecting onto there. Then look at the proportion. That's more rounded. That's a bit too squarish. Knock it back. It needs to be defined. I'm going to use the dark one to just define that shape a little. Now, sometimes what I tend to do is I even go back to the actual charcoal, which looks like I've dropped it. I'm going to grab that in a second. If not, I'll just go back to the blue, and I'll work with that. And then we'll use the red. And work from that. Now I'm going to stop for a moment just to give my arms a break, because they're starting to cramp, and once it cramps, it just makes it too difficult. So, and then I'm just going to spend a few minutes looking, and just looking. All right, now, first things I notice is that I've got to go into these darker, and I notice that the shadow here, of course, of the shoe on there, and it's defining the this object here and the brick. So I'll be coming to those and working with those. Now, before I do that, because I know the actual paper is blue, I'm going to make this much bluer and make it really stand out. And when I do this, this will change. This will start to look darker, which means then I might have to come back to this and make it lighter. And as I said, that's what I love about the pastels and the chances. I don't like having a plan, and I don't like having to work with scales, all that sort of stuff. I don't look at scales. I let it evolve. I allow myself to play with these pastels and with these colours, and let them tell me what to do, rather than saying, okay, according to the colour scale, that blue should be with that type of orange. I'm not interested. I'm more interested in what's happening when I'm working here. So now I'm going to get that blue, and I'm going to start putting in the blue to define it. Now I'm leaving an area where the string is going to be. I can go over it, but I don't want to, because I want to keep that undertone. So when I put the string, the white string, that undertone will play between the white and the blue. And they dance with each other to me. They dance with each other, they help each other out. And because orange is the complementary of blue, it makes the white much more relate to the actual blue. Sometimes when I go out into a landscape and I draw, I take my pastels with me. So rather than taking all the equipment out for paint, I just take the pastels and I actually draw with the pastels. And that way, and then I can bring it back to the studio, and then I can do a painting from that onto a canvas. Or sometimes I might draw on the canvas with a pastel, and then I actually go over with the medium, and the medium will make the pastels part of the picture anyway. But to me, I tend to go away. My parents have a caravan, and I go and spend some time with them. And pastels is a great thing to take because I can just go out there and draw and draw. I'm not worried having chemicals here and there. It's just drawing away. Now, as I said before, sometimes I might use a brush. Rather than smudging, I might use water and I'll brush that and do that. In this case, as I mentioned before, I won't because that's gouache. Gouache will become loose and then I'll lose that orange, which I don't want to do. But if it was acrylic underneath, then I can do that and then I can work into it. Now, I've put my blue. Now I'm going to put some blue into the shoe because eventually we're going to make that darker and it helps me define the edge of the jar. And let reality tell you what's going on. If I look at that, I can't see what's going on. I can't see the shoe because it's going through the glass. Therefore, I'm not going to put detail. I'm just going to leave it. It looks out of focus because it's being distorted. Now here, the shadow, I'm going to put the shadow of the shoe on the wall. I'm going to put the blue for now, and later on I'll touch that up with the red and orange to make it more. But at the moment, it's not too defined yet. It's just, I'm just putting my tones down, just for now. Now I'm going to get my heavier blue and I'm going to go into the shadowy areas. Work with that. And I look at that, it's not dark enough. So then I can use my dark red and do that first, put that there. And then see what happens. If not, then I can go back again with the black. So I'm just going to put this blue first. I'm just going to go over slightly with the black, just to bring in some really dark areas. And here I'm going to start getting in the black where the shoe is and black that because it's not going to be black anymore. It's actually got all these other colours coming through. So I can go in there confidently knowing it's not going to look straight black because I'm allowing the other colours to rub into that. Being aware of the negative shapes and blocking and blocking. Okay, so at this stage I've got all these things happening here. There's all this dark and light, and the shapes are starting to take form. And then I can start working into these and bringing some light into that. But I'm just going to have a bit of a break on my arm because my arm is starting to fall asleep. So I'm just going to stop there and again look for a while. Look. What stands out? What shapes are standing out? You know, the angle of this is a little bit lopsided. I can come back, but I know when I look at this there, I'm not seeing a realism of a jar. I'm seeing a jar, but I'm seeing all these other colours, and that's what fascinates me in painting with pastels or drawing with pastels. It still looks like paint to me. It looks like paint. I want the viewer to see the glass, see the objects, but see the colour. At the end, this is not real. This is just a drawing, and I want them to understand and see the medium. Now on the actual skull, for example this one here, I can actually see grey tones, and because my hand's really dirty, I tend to do this. I use it. It's part of it. Same as if you're painting. Okay, now establish that. Keep looking, and then I'm going to start bringing some light into the stump, into there, and then we work from there. So let's build that up. I'm going to use a little bit of the yellow first. The top of the brick is a bit lighter. Eventually I'll make that more pink, but for now we're going to put the yellow. And here. Then I'm going to get my white and go in there and start again putting in some light and dark areas. The texture of that stump. And moving around with the form. I'm not going to put it to detail because I don't see the detail through the glass. I only see a little bit. And I can see the reflection overlapping. So that shadow or the reflection of this is overlapping there. So I'll do that, put that there. This is I can see more information. And I'm moving around with the object. Now as I do that, and that's lighter, I know this will have to be darker later on, this red area, but that's okay. It's underpaint. It's like underpainting. It's your colours that are underneath. In this case with the pastel, it's the colours underneath. We can come back to that. What I like about this, for me, as in spontaneous drawing, and I'm not trying to get it perfection, is that they start to become forms on their own. But we know it's a tree stump, but it started off as a tree stump, but it's starting to look like a creature. I'm not going to turn into a creature, I'm just going to draw what I'm seeing, but I don't mind that. If it was photorealism for me, then it looks exactly what that is there, and I'm not interested in that. I want it to look like whatever it evolves into as I'm drawing it. I'm going to use my black to define the shape. I'm just going to quickly grab some charcoal because I have dropped that piece. I always come back to the charcoal. With the charcoal, I tend to, sometimes because black is too black, I tend to use the charcoal to actually define that. And I go into there. Because it's more of a greyish tone, which I quite like. Now, I know some people say you shouldn't use the charcoal with that. To me, it holds on and it gives you a nice tone that's black but not really black. It tends to blend and it gives you this bluish grey tone, which I really like. I know there are rules in pastels and so on, but as I say, rules are meant to be broken. To me, it's what I like. It's the effect that I like at the end, and whatever medium does it, then I'll go with that. Okay, now I'm going to go to the brick and I'm going to put in the red. I'm going to use the two reds here. Use the darker red first. And I'm going to use the lighter red, or the much warmer red. The brick is flat, so I'm going to work flat. And then I'm going to go in there with the yellow on top of that. Just in some areas, not all of it. And then I'm going to go with the white to make it lighter where it needs to be lighter. And as I'm doing that, as I'm going on, I'm starting to see things clearer. I'm just starting to see all the information I need. Everything is starting to fall into place from there. So then I come back and then come back to this area and let's work this. So when I look at this, I know it's glass and it's white, but it's got that hint of orange from the paper. So I'm just going to put in my yellow lightly, like that. A tiny bit of the orange, the red, the light red. And then go back in there with the white and define it. I'll come back to it later on and define a bit more. At this stage, I'm just going to get the basis. When I make lines thick, I'll go with the dark in between to make them thinner. But not now. I'll first put in all the things that I see for now, the reflections. Come back, I'm back and forth, back and forth. I'll do that. I'll come back to that later. I'm going to go now and define, bring in this white string. So then I know everything that I need is going to be in here. And bring that string across on top of that orangey colour that's sitting on top of the blue. It goes around and there and like this. And then same as this one. Just fading underneath the jar. So I'm going to make sure it's going under the jar. Around. 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 And even though I've made it closer, it doesn't matter. I can do whatever I want. So I can bring that here. If I wanted to, I can actually put another loop and bring it through. It doesn't matter. All depends, because I can see these loops here. I did it on purpose because, again, of these shapes. So I might change things, as I said before, as I go along and let it evolve on its own. Okay. Okay, now at this stage, because I'm actually squinting my eyes a lot, as most artists will tell you, my eyes are starting to get blurry. So I'll have to stop for a little while, and then I'll come back to it fresh. Let's see how we go. Skip and go with that, and give myself a break to have a look, and just have a look. Okay, now we'll get back to it now that I've given my arm a bit of a rest, and I've been looking at it for a while. And then the first thing I do is look at the composition and look at the setup. And what I've noticed is that a lot of things happening here, and this place is starting to annoy me because it's quite empty. Now, there's nothing wrong with leaving it empty, but in this case, I do want to put something in there. And I always have little bits and pieces of props around. So I've decided to do, I've just got this roll of tape with a bit of string, and I'm going to pin that up to the wall and put it as part of the picture. So let's put that there, and I'll explain in a moment why. I'm just going to put that about here for now. Okay. And what I noticed is that because of these nice curves that are taking place here, this becomes a non-space. It's not doing anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw that in. So I'm going to bring that curve, and because also this beautiful blue here, it needs something here. And I think the blue will work perfectly with that. I'm not going to put the full thing in there. I'm going to bring it partly in. So it looks like it's coming into the composition. Like that. And then I will put the bit of the black to get a bit of a tone in here, the shadow. There's a bit of stringing off here, so I'll use that there, and I'll define it. That way I will bring something into that. It might work, it might not, but for me it needed something. And then the tape has got a bit of a white edge, so I'm going to put that there. Even though it's lighter, I'm going to make it deliberately much lighter to work with the whites that are going onto here. Now this is becoming a space that's starting to make some sense. It's got something happening into here. The string is hanging over, and it's causing a shadow. So I'm going to use that. As I said, to me, drawing is an evolution. It's an evolution. And I'm not, as I said before, and I repeat myself on that, it's not about photorealism. And it's very much as, I think it was Brett Whiteley, the artist, said that when you have artist has their subject, and then there's the artist, something happens in the middle. Our job as the artist is to find what is that middle ground and turn it into an interesting artwork. And that's what I'm trying to do here. How do I make this interesting for the viewer? So I'll go back in there and redefine. Make that blue much stronger. And work with that. Now I'm going to draw the outside line stronger now, so I know exactly what I've got. I can always take that off later if I need to, go over it and work with that. So that's the one thing is I noticed with coming back to this is that space needed something here. Now I can see these curves are moving together and they're working together. All right, now come back into this. The string, for example, it's not just a line, it is still an object, it's still a form. So the string still has shadow. So I'm going to go under there and draw in my shadow. So I'm just going to get my black lightly, using the point, even though it's a thick piece of dry pastel, I can use a thinner one, or else I just use the point of it, make sure it's a bit broken, so I can actually get into that and get a bit of a line underneath it to show it's sitting. It's not floating, it's actually sitting there. Same as this one, and I'm doing the same thing there. Here, it's on the bottom side of the white, not both sides, just the bottom side. That makes it sit more. And you always have to do this, you have to understand light. You know, if the light's coming from that direction, it's going to create shadow. So you always make sure you know where is your light coming from. And working with that. Then I can go in there, have a look at this string, and I can actually see lines. I still see, I'm going to use a charcoal this time because it's fine line. And I'm going to get these lines happening in here. So you can just see me putting these lines into there to define it. Heavier lines down the bottom because it's darker. There's a string there, it's got a bit of a shadow. String there, bit of a shadow, bit of a shadow. And it's defined. Again, get the white and redefine those lines. Make them stand out more, much sharper. And they'll stand out more. And they fade, lighter, and they fade. Lighter, and it fades. And I can see lines going this way. Here, and across. And it fades. Cross and it fades. Then I can see the line continuous there. The line's going over, so I'm going to use the line to go over. It looks like it's going over. It's going over there. And then here I can see the faint line here. And it fades away. Then I can see these lines crossing over. Again, it's very abstract. But as long as it makes it look like lines, that's all I need to do that. Come back and redefine. These blue area, I can come in closer. And then I can come closer into here. And then I notice here that there's a shadow. There's a shadow of the ball. Now naturally people will put black. It's not really black. It's actually the complementary colour of blue. Your complementary colour of blue is your orange. So if I make an orange, so if I get my dark red, for example here, and then I use my yellow, rub that in, and then get my dark blue that I've got with that. I'm starting to get a bit of a shadow taking place there. The complementary colour, which is the orange, is bring it through. I'll make this light, the blue here, continue here, and then the trick is the light back. So I'm just going to first block this out. And there's shadow also in here, so the same thing in here. I can see the shadow, so I can go into there, make it a bit darker with the red, the yellow, the orange tone, and then with the dark blue on the top. But at the moment, it's still not dark enough. But I'm not going to make it darker because it's not that dark. What I need to do is I need to now bring in some light into this blue. So I'm just going to get my white and make it a little bit lighter. Around here. What it does, it'll slowly start to emphasize the shadow. I can see shadow going across, so I'm just going to make it light only here. Not all the way, just into there. Here I can see actually a bit of it light here, so it makes you can see a little bit of the shadow of this there. So I'm just going to make it light there up to the edge of the other object here. Same as here. I'm not covering it all with white, I'm only just going areas just to emphasize the weight by bringing the shadows, bringing some light there to make the shadows stand out a little bit more. Okay. At this point, I'm just going to leave it at that and then come back into here. Now, look around, start looking at working, okay, what have I got? This still needs to be defined. So I'm going to use a charcoal to define this edge. Bring it darker on the outside and draw in. There's an edge of the glass going around, draw that in. There's an edge here, draw that in. Now the glass is lighter, behind it's darker, so that means I need to bring in the edge of that ellipse coming around and that ellipse also coming around. Here we go, like that. This drops down, this is lighter here. You just need to come that little wider out into there. Working into that, the light is slowly actually changing as I'm going along. I can actually see a few different lights have come in because we're working with electrical light and daylight. There's light coming in and there's more light here than there was before. I can see a dot of light just there and I can actually see a light there going across. As long as I'm sticking to the truth, I can't go wrong. I'm working with that. Now behind here, I need to make that shadow darker, but it's because that's orange, it still needs to be in the orange scale. So I need to make that red first. And the yellow. Now at this stage, I haven't used the eraser, but I can if I wanted to, and I'll show you why. Because I've got that undertone under there. I can get my eraser, which is the kneadable rubber, and I can actually go in there and I can lift some of it. Because I know I've got this orange colour underneath. So I can go in there and bring some of that orange back. But I've still got those dark tones on top. So I'm just doing that. Now I need to make this much more yellow. At the moment it's still too pinkish tone. So I'm going to go in there and make it more yellow. So I'm going to put my warm, the warm red again a little bit. Just in areas with a bit pink. But then I'm going to go in there strongly with the yellow. And we'll see whether we need to make it too yellow, which means then I'll go with the red still, put more red, and then I'm going to go with the yellow on top of that red, and that should become more orange. But like I said, you know, if you didn't want to do that, you can just use your orange pastel. Go ahead and do so. But in this case, I want to stick with that. I'm limiting my palette. it makes it easier, it makes it more interesting, and it's like a song. You know, you can write a piece of music with only 3 chords. You don't have to have 15 chords. You know, you can just do it with 3. Same as drawing and painting. You just limit it. Now once I've done that, I'll go into the shadow area and put a bit of red into that, because it's the blue, it's creating more of an orangey shadow. Can do that. Now I'm going to go in there and start putting in the yellow much heavier. Oops, take the paper off. Now I've gone over the black or dark area. It's gone a bit green, so I go back with the red, and then the yellow again, and it should go a bit more orange from there. Now there's a yellow tag in that shoe, which is in here. I can just see it. I can put that there, and there's a yellow of the tag on that part. I can put that in. But then I still got to come in here and keep putting in this yellow to make it more orange. And what's happening, it's no longer dull, the colour, it's actually complementing the blue. It's bringing the blue much stronger and much more vibrant because of the orange. When I do that, I can actually make it lighter. This shadow is going to stand out even more. Okay, that stays dark, but I'm making this lighter. And I can just see a light hitting here, and it makes that shadow stand out even more. Dark against light, I can see it's the yellow through here. So I'm going to put that into there also and work with that and work from there. So now it's starting to become a bit more defined. Now as I do that, step back, have a look and work out what's standing out, what's not. So if I go into this, I can see that the stump needs a bit of bringing out some form. And then as I work into that, keep looking, and I can see now that's working. That blue now is working with this, and it's bringing more form out. This is a bit clumsy, so now I just come into here and use the point of the pastel and try and make that line a bit more defined. Try to keep my hand still, which is a bit hard, and then just define that edge. So define that edge, and because I've made it a bit too thick, that doesn't matter, because I will go in there now with the black, or else in this case I'm just going with the charcoal, and I'll draw in it and make that edge narrower, that light edge narrower. Now that part's working, then I can define the edge of the glass here again, and symmetric, make sure it's working with the other side. A bit of a highlight, oops, a bit of a highlight just here, and a bit just there. This is sharp enough there. I'm going to smudge that back and then go over it again, very sharp white across like that. And I can see reflections taking place here and there. Come back, make this lighter. And it's dark against light now. So as I'm going in there and refining, working out, okay, can I read what's going on here? That brick needs to be a little bit darker. So that means I'll get the darker red, make it a bit darker. And I'm going to use the blue. I'm just going to get some blue on my finger from here. And I'm going to go into that and do that. And it knocks it back to make it a little bit darker. Just using that there, and it makes it defined a bit more. The edge needs to be defined. The brick edge is here. Behind the brick is a bit darker, so I need to get my dark again into here with the red and the yellow, and then I can use a charcoal if I want to, just to make it that wonderful, lovely, soft, greyish brown tone that you don't get with the black. That I'll use that to define. Now, coming back, now I'm defining. So now I'm looking at that. I can see, I'm going to touch a little bit of the, a little black, the skull is sitting on there and it's creating a bit of a shadow. I'm going to use the black first, very lightly, but it's a reddish brick. So then I go over the top with the red and the yellow. So it's not black anymore, it's that deep colour. Like that. And if you want to be sure of that, you can actually use the actual blue, again the dark on top of that. Working with that. This needs to be defined. So under here that's a bit darker and darker. And then you have the teeth part, which is a bit darker, so I'm just going to use the black into here. It's overlapping a little bit, the brick. And then go in there with the white and define them. Again, I'm not going to count the teeth. I'm just going to get a brief idea which way they go and just put those in there like that. And that fades out. I'll probably later on crop it up to here. I'm just going to go back there. Now this is the part that's important now. This is all about refining. All definition. What am I seeing? What's there, what's not there? And start putting in more information as I go on. And how much information is up to you. I could leave it at this point and that'll be enough as a drawing. Or I might say, no, look, I want a bit more. And sometimes I might leave it, come back tomorrow and think, nah, I need a bit more here and a bit more there. Same as painting. Same as painting. And that's why I find with the pastels, it's a very friendly medium which allows you, I'll just drop the white, I'll pick that up. And it allows you to come back and forth, back and forth. Now here it's a little bit confused because that's the actual brick there. So I've got to go in there, and the brick has this design or this pattern. It's got this text. I'm just going to put those in there. You don't see it there, and that's it. But the brick is a little bit lighter on the edge. So I'm going to use my yellow. It's a bit lighter here. Still keeping it in that scale of the colours there. And it's got all these broken bits of the brick that's got mould growing on it, all those sorts of things. And I can just go in there and put that there. I'm using the charcoal, or I can use a black, or I can use a green tone mixing my yellow and blue. And let's do that. I can just do that. And working with that. Now again, coming back to here, this we need to still redefine. So I need to come here, I'm going to redraw with the charcoal of the things so I can see more line and define that. I'm not leaving it that black colour. I'm going to put that there and use my dark red to define it. And under there is actually brick. So I'll get my eraser, bring that back, which I know I've got that colour. That's going to help me. So that's going to be the brick. The edge of that stump is darker. So I'm going to show the stump there. And voila, that shows there. And then I can actually put down the edge, or the bottom edge of that brick. There. And it stands out. It's there. And then I can touch it up with the little bit of the warm red. I want to, and then the yellow, and there. So that's why I use that colour. I range. Sometimes I use this sort of colour. I might use a pink colour depending on the subject I'm working with. But because I knew I'm going to be working with the blues and the orange, that tone will work perfectly with that. Now I'm going to come back into here. Now I need to redefine here. That's too wide here. Now I'm going to start going back with the charcoal, and I need to draw. I need to draw in the actual shape of it. Get that right. It's darker here. That's too red. That needs to be more orange. So I need to knock that back. Back with the white. And because I've got this colour here that I'm making this darker, I'm going to jump to the other side and make sure these are also darker, consistent with that, to that. leave that, come back again, and we need to make this much lighter and darker. Here, first I'm going to define the edges, the basic drawing of it. That needs to be defined into here and into there. Here. In there it's much more orange inside, but then again, as I said, I've got that already. So I can go back in there now and I can actually bring that out. Bring that out there. Then go in there and just touch that up a little bit where it needs to be a little bit darker. And then go in there with the white and make it where it needs to be whiter. To make it stand out. It's a nice sharp bony edge. So I need to make sure that's defined. And this is slightly defined. Oops. Yeah, it comes down. Now notice this needs to drop. So I need to make it darker into here, in shadow under there. And the teeth part that are missing are actually in this area. This becomes a bit longer. So it changes. As I'm going along, it's changing because I'm noticing different things. Now I can, because it's the shadow is actually reflecting from that blue. So I can actually put that blue into here. Then I can make it a bit more lighter. Area. And then come back. I'm going to use the black to define this edge because I've extended it in here. And then leaving it, rather than leaving it the black, I'm going to go over it with that dark blue. There, and that dark under here. I'm going to use the blue and the dark with the dark red. Make it defined from there. Now keep working to here and working out, okay, these are the teeth here, and then there's these points. It's very zigzaggy, so I'm just going to put zigzag points here and zigzag points there like that. This is lighter. And it's much lighter across here. Smudge it. Fades. And then you've got these dots of the bone in here. I'm putting those there. Come back to this part now and make this lighter across here, because this edge is quite sharp. Around here it's lighter. There's an edge here. There's all these different things happening now, and I'm starting to look for them, and look for the ones that really stand out mainly, not everything. To work from there. And then there's a shadow under there. This needs to be a little bit lighter to stand out. And there's a funny sort of a corner bit like this. Put that in. And then I've got this light hitting here. And then much lighter on the edge there, because that bone protrudes a little bit out here. But the string looks like it stops there, which we know it's going under. So I'm just going to define that string that's going under. There we go, like that. and it makes a little bit more sense. And then here, and working from there, let it go. Now this red stands out too much, which we know it's not, we don't need that, so we need to knock that back. The yellow here is much darker, so I'm just going to go in there with the dark red. Make it darker. Or again, I can actually go back with the eraser and bring out that area and define that edge. Now I can keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. At this stage, I'm only concerned about the shape, the basic. Now here, for example, this needs to come down. So then it makes it look narrower, and then it makes a bit more sense. I'm just going to use that. And because the shoe is a bit of a brown tone, dark brown, I'm just going to go lightly over it with the red. And then I'm going to use my white for there's a light area like the edge of the actual shoe bit, and then there's a bit of a light edge here, very faint, and then there's this pattern on the shoe here, the stitching, and it's across there also, and working with that. That's okay. Now this needs to be defined because we've got a strap. So I can define that. It's darker in here. It's like a loop. And this definitely I'm going to use a bit of the red here, black here, sorry. And I'm going to use the red inside that. And we know that that's yellow, but I'm going to touch a little bit of white with yellow to make it stand out, because it's too much like that yellow, and do that. Just make it stand out a bit more there. Okay, so then I just keep going back and forth. So then here I can keep coming back and working with that, working out does this need to be darker or lighter. I know in some areas there needs to be lighter and darker. Inside there that can be a bit darker. I'm going to put a bit of charcoal, but I'm going to touch a bit of red because I can actually see reddish orange in here. White because it's reflecting from the brick. So it's causing that. So everything is reflecting, affects each other. Each areas affect each other because of the light hitting. All we're seeing is light. Close your eyes, you see nothing. You see nothing at all. All we're seeing is light, and the light reflects from one object, one part of an object to the next, and so forth. Whatever. Lucian Freud, when he used to paint, he always, for example, if he was painting a nude on a bed, on a sofa, and today he was only going to paint the sofa, he would still have the model there because he knew that the colour of the model will affect the colour of the sofa. That's what difference between life and photography, working from photographs. That the colours are there and they will totally affect what you're working with. The colours reflect on each other, always will. Now I can make this lighter here because it's a shadow under there. And I can define that by bringing more light into here. It's a bit of a bend in the bone here. So I'm going to use a bit of that black that I've got here, or the bluish black, because I want that tone. I can just put it through there. Lighten this bit. Lighten that dot. And we're not going to worry too much about it because I'm going to be cropping that there. Here I can see there's lines in the actual tree where it's been cut. So I'm just going to put some lines into here. come back and redefine some areas that are lighter and do that. Now in here I can go much darker if I wanted to, and it's a decision basically, and the decision I'm going to make is to do that, and the reason why is that when I look at that, this is very heavy. That's a very heavy dark tone, and we need that heaviness here. So I'm going to go in there with my black, and then I'm going to go in there with the dark red, because the actual colour is not black, it's more of almost a mauve colour taking place there. And then I go back in there with the dark blue on top of that, and it makes it stand out even more. Working with that. Okay. There, so come here and define in here what's going on here. This needs to be darker inside. Okay. Come back here, define this. I can see still more lines. So I'm seeing things all the time, and I'm coming back and forth and back and forth. That's too heavy, and then come back and put some more fine line again for that. And because it's reflecting blue, I can bring some blue into here. I'm working with that. Now just have a look at it, and have a look and say, am I happy with it or not? Do I leave it at that? Or do I trash it? That's not something I do. That sometimes I'll work on something and think, nah, it's right. Tissue all over it and start over again. But in this case, I quite like what's going on. I need to define here. So then I come up to here and I lighten this to show the edge of the shoe. And we don't see the roundness there, but we need to make it a bit darker on the outside to define that edge. Follow it through. We know that goes across, so follow it through. There. Here you've got the actual, where we've got that strap, there's a bit of a dark area. I'm going to use the black, definitely. It's really dark in there. Work with that. And on the outside, I'm going to put my yellow. And then touch it up with a bit of a white. So we can see a bit of the strap going over there and so forth from where I am. So basically I'll look at that, then I'll work out here, this needs to be a bit more defined. So I need to work with this, much lighter. I'm working with that. There's an edge of the crack or the central line, which is the crack of the actual middle of the skull. I'm going to put that in with the charcoal. I'm not going to use the black pastel because it comes out too dark, and I don't want that. This is much more pointier here, and it drops down, and so forth. I can keep going. I can keep going and come back forth and back forth until I decide how far do I want to go with it. At this stage, I'm quite happy as it is. To me, it's got the general idea of the objects and so forth. I can still put light in areas of the glass. I'm working with that, and here the more and more the light's changing, this is actually becoming much more orange. The orange from there is reflecting even more. So let's put a bit of the red first, a light red, and a bit of the yellow, and then a touch of the white to make it really stand out. And this just needs to come out a bit more here. I'm working on a slight angle, so I can't exactly see if it's symmetrical, but I can actually see the light's reflecting here, there, there, and there, and it's reflecting here, slightly there, and then these lines are defined. And I said before that reflection of that skull needs to be a bit more defined now. It's standing out more, and I can see a reflection here of white coming from the skull also now, and giving me that. And at this stage, I think I'm almost there for what I need. And how I define when something's finished is that nothing's bothering me. If something's bothering me, then I go back to it. But once I feel like, no, nothing's bothering, so I'm quite happy to leave it. Here, that needs to be a bit darker because of the weight here and there. I need to define this edge. So I'm going to define that edge. And define this one. And that's actually sitting. And I'll get a black one, which I think I just dropped. That's okay. I'll use the charcoal and just make it much heavier under here. I'm working with that. Now, because I've been working on this, I've got my hands over it. I've actually gone over this white string. So I need to come back and make that white string even sharper. Now, I don't fix my drawings, my pastel drawings. I definitely don't fix it with the workable fixative because it's chemical. It makes my drawing a little bit darker, which I don't like. What I do use is I use that new one, which is the Degas dry fixative, and the actual fixative is actually it's made from skim milk, and it's got a bit of alcohol in it to make it dry quicker, and it is actually quite safer to use. Now we know that Degas drawings, that they are still around and the colours are still vibrant. I've had some drawings I've had in my drawer that were done with the chemical fixative, and some of them are starting to go a little bit brown in areas and so on. So I avoid the chemical one, and I'm using this new one that I found about, which works really well. So there you go. That is, at this stage, I'm quite happy. But like I said, I might come in tomorrow and I might say, nah, change this, change that. I don't know. To me, it's all an evolution. So at this stage, it makes sense enough for me to work with. I can see now that there could be a bit more darkness in here. But these are things that I would leave for now, as long as I've got the basic thing there. And I'm quite happy now with this. This really now is making this a space. It's no longer a non-space. It's space that actually now relates to the roundness, the roundness, the roundness, and everything else. It brings it all together. There you go.